Yo, what is up? Hey, Michelle, what is up? How are you?
I am so good. I am just, I don't even know. I'm out of words to say that how excited I am to see you, Arvin, and be back on Unscripted Intelligence with you. We've had kind of a break and
Yes,
you
we
left
have.
us all hanging last time. And so it's so great to have you back with us. And we have an amazing show tonight.
Yeah, for those guys who don't know, the last time we were filming an episode, my wife went into labor literally like an hour-ish or so right before we were supposed to start. Actually, no, it was the webinar. The webinar was earlier in the day. So it was like a couple minutes before the webinar that we got the call she was going into labor, and ended up having to miss the webinar and the podcast that day. And it's been, 3 weeks-ish since then. I am currently not alive. I am a figment of imagination. My brain is not functioning because I haven't slept in those 3 weeks since the last time we've talked. But I'm here, super excited. Today is is this episode 2 or 3 of our series?
It is episode 3 of the series. But first, we should introduce what is unscripted intelligence.
You're right. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and do that.
So tell us, Arvin.
Yes. Okay. It's been a long time. Welcome, everybody. Unscripted Intelligence is a podcast where we talk about human intelligence, artificial intelligence, how they intersect, and how they impact everything from education to the workforce.
On this podcast, we interview innovators, change leaders, and thought makers. In this podcast, we interview thought leaders, change makers, and who are making waves and shaking things up. These are live conversations that are unscripted, and we are unscripted right now and unfiltered. But what's great about it is when we bring people together, the goal is to kind of create that space for what isn't being discussed. And as always, the conversations are
unavoidable.
Thank
you guys so much for listening and hopping into this episode.
I'm Michelle Ament, the co-president of the Human Intelligence Movement and the chief academic officer for ProSolve. The Human Intelligence Movement is a grassroots nonprofit organization that is dedicated to ensuring that we as humans have the uniquely human skills we need to thrive in an AI world. And what I'm super excited about with this series is that we're uncovering what it is that makes us uniquely human and what are the attributes that AI will never replace.
Absolutely. My name is Arvin Ross. I am the immersive learning designer and facilitator for the Human Intelligence Movement, as well as a co-founder for ProSolve. This series is really a long time coming. As you guys have seen throughout the last, 23-ish episodes or something like that, we have interviewed a lot of really impactful people that have kind of drawn together with the mission, the idea, the heartbeat behind the Human Intelligence Movement. And this entire series, we're really taking that, we're taking it a step deeper into the heart and the mission of the Human Intelligence Movement by talking about what makes us uniquely human. So it's been a long time coming. A lot of amazing minds are already signed up for these next couple of episodes in this series, and we are super stoked to dive deep into it. Michelle, tell us a little bit more about what makes us uniquely human. Give us some kind of just like a general overview of what we're talking about this episode.
Well, this episode is all about thinking and how are we possibly like outsourcing our thinking? I think a lot of times you can't go on social media or have a conversation where someone isn't saying that AI is replacing critical thinking. There's been studies about that. And we have 3 amazing guests today that we're going to really dig into. What does this really mean? Have we really forgotten how to think? Is AI really replacing thinking? Or is it illuminating something else around us and in our world? So that's what our conversation is going to center on this evening. And this is a community conversation. So what we really want is the people watching to be adding their ideas, their insights, and posing questions to help really inform this conversation. So if you are joining us tonight, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and we'll go ahead and introduce our folks joining us.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm so excited to see who's chiming in tonight, or see who's tuning in and where you're coming in from. So who we're interviewing? Who's our guest for today?
All right, we've got three amazing guests that are part of the human intelligence movement. First of all, Kevin Dougherty. Let me start over. Kevin Dougherty. Oh, Kevin
Dougherty.
Dougherty. And like, I know it, and I'm looking right at it. Okay, let me start over. We've got Kevin Dougherty joining us, and Kevin has spent 40 plus years in education, from the classroom to the principal's office to now building cognitive tools at NeuroPoints. And he hosts a podcast called Just Thinking. So I don't know anyone else who would be better to come and talk about thinking tonight than Kevin. And one of the things that he is just focused on, making sure that thinking is celebrating and that we are illuminating our thinking. And he has spent his entire career really focusing on that and trying to protect cognitive thought. So welcome, Kevin.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
Welcome. Next, we have Anna Shildrick. And Anna is joining us. Anna is one of the very first members of the human intelligence movement, far before when we were working on our virtual summit and our kickoff. She was a partner of mine helping to bring that all together and did an amazing job. A little bit about Anna is she has been in education over 27 years across multiple continents and school systems. And Anna is all about human intelligence, not because it's a buzzword or fashionable, but because she is very fearful of what happens if we outsource our judgment and our thinking before we even teach it. Anna has a gift to really help leaders understand and realize that they've been focused on compliance rather than growth, and really help students see that struggle isn't failure, but insight and an opening for learning. Welcome, Anna.
Thanks, Michelle. Pleasure to be here.
Love it.
And then last but not least, we have Bryan Zevotek. Bryan Zevotek, look at me with that last
You did it. I was going to say you did
I
it.
nailed it. Bryan says, this is fascinating. He says he's forever bouncing between being the jester and the sage, somewhere between a stand-up comic and a scholar. So I think we're going to see a lot of uniqueness coming from Bryan. He spent 28 years in the classroom, and he has written a book called Recalculating that really is about moving from burnout to meaning. And his next book, Artificially Intelligence, argues that education should model a flourishing life and not just prepare people for one. So I'm super excited to dig into that tonight. So welcome, Bryan.
Oh, thanks, Michelle, Arvin, Kevin, and Anna. It's super great to meet you guys. And I gotta say, it was a little interesting moment that happened, was I thought unscripted doesn't mean unprepared, right? So I was like, do I want to think too much about this, coming into it tonight? And I'm glad that somebody read that piece that I wrote, Michelle. So I can be both funny and try to be wise, and hopefully that doesn't work in the reverse.
I love it. I'm super excited. Michelle, I'm always just in awe of the caliber of individuals you somehow get to come on this podcast. And so I'm super excited for tonight. Let's go ahead and hop into it really quick. I did see a couple comments. Dr. Mark is online again, hopping in the comments. Mark, I freaking love you. You're amazing. I see Megan here. Hey, what is up to you as well? And everybody else that's tuning in, let's get into it. So before we get super heavy and before we get all intense, this whole idea for this episode in the series is all about thinking. It's all about this idea, this concept of thinking something that is uniquely human. What are some of the uniquely human aspects of thinking, right? So before we get all heavy, here's the question, just an icebreaker. When was the last time that you used AI to do something or to figure something out that you absolutely could have thought through yourself? Like, no judgment, like not going to roast you, but what is the time? Give me a recent time that you used AI to do something that totally you did not need to, but you just did.
I'll jump in if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's all right if I just jump in here.
Yeah.
So Michelle mentioned that I host a podcast, Just Thinking. Just Thinking is a little tagline that I put in every post on social media. And so it provides that consistency. But I've been writing these posts for years. But with the onset of AI, I am now taking what I write and running it through a large language model to kind of see what it spits back out at me. And then I iterate before I post. So I almost do that every single time now. Not that I don't trust my own writing, but AI is giving me a different vocabulary, a different approach to how I say it. And so I really appreciate that thought partnership that the AI is providing for me.
I love it. I love it. And I think every single person here does the same thing. I feel like I'm not going to be able to actually read or write in like 10 years because of my use of AI. Let's just be real. That's just me though. Bryan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, it was funny when you were saying that, Kevin. I could see where there were times where it improved upon. Like I saw, I didn't realize I could have seen it that way. But as Michelle mentioned, this second book coming out, totally shameless plug there. But when I got it back from the publisher with a list of changes, I totally did the lazy thing. And I'll say partially glad that I did. I took what he gave me and I uploaded it. I uploaded my full manuscript and I said, which of these tasks can be automated over the entire book? And what do I really need to target? But I already knew like the first three, there's no way it's going to do that. I need to take the painstaking and task of doing it myself, which slightly annoyed me, right? That it wouldn't just do it for me. But at the same time, as I was feeding chapter and at a time in, it started getting further and further from my voice. So the first one was spot on. And then it started just slowly like, wait, pretty soon I'm like, that's not even the title of the chapter. It had gotten that far off. So I was like, wait. I can't just copy paste this thing and be done with it because I had checked the box that I was done writing, so.
I love it. And what's funny about that, I've heard people call that drifting, where you're writing something and you're engaging with AI, going back and forth, and then the core message of it just starts to drift over time. And if you're not careful, you won't even notice that. And what the end product might seem so amazing, so great, but at the end of the day, it's lost the soul. It's lost the heart of what you were originally saying. That is, I feel like that's probably something we need to circle back to before we finish this episode. Anna?
Yeah, I think like anybody and everybody, we've all been guilty of saying, wow, what a fantastic tool, especially if I've customized it to challenge my thinking, to push me further. But I did find myself saying, hey, I don't like the middle part of that paragraph. Give me some ideas. And I thought, I am such a control freak. I don't need anybody else telling me what the middle of that paragraph should look like. I caught myself doing it and thought, no, it's a slippery slope. Don't do it. Of course, we all fall into doing it, but I think we have to be really, really aware of what that slippery slope means and why we're here to talk about it today, because it is so tempting just to get some, to get some instant feedback, get there faster, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better.
Yeah. I would agree with you so much, Anna, because I think my example is about shortcutting. And when I shortcut, then what happens is I actually create more work for myself. I recently was getting ready to put together an article and I just was like, write me an outline. And then we were circling and then time went by because the output wasn't at all what I was thinking, because I didn't take the time on the front end to really put my thoughts together and know what was I trying to communicate? What did I want the outcome to be? How did I want it structured? And I just really outsourced it, shortcutting, thinking I could just say, help me write an outline about this topic and these things. And I think it's really left me thinking about why is that my first inclination? I didn't even pause and think, I should write an outline first. I just went right to my chat and asked it to produce for me. And it's just really left me thinking, why do I do that? Like what's happening there? And it gives me a lot of fear about us as humans, and especially in education.
Michelle,
go ahead.
oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Well, just in response to that, I think that is one of the biggest dangers is when you start to do this, you lose confidence in your own ability, your own judgment. You start to lose confidence. And, if you look at this whole story of how school has been evolving over time, we need to give people confidence in their human intelligence, in their abilities. And so here's a huge risk that we have to take into account. We don't want to lose confidence if we start to say, well, it does it better. I don't know if I could get there myself. That is the biggest danger that I can see at this moment in time.
And hearing you say that is really hitting me hard, because I just shared my example, and I now second guess myself when I write without the assistance of AI, something, on social media. And so that is a potential danger, and that is losing that confidence. I hadn't thought of that until you just said that.
Yeah, as I was going through, I probably wrote like 60 different chapters because of exactly what you were saying. Every time it would spit back to me something better than I had thought of myself. So it's like, how do you ever hit publish with that imposter syndrome right in your face all the time? And I think where I finally came was actually right when I came home from FETC. It was like, I'm done with this, right? And so you start saying, what's my blind spot? Not add to my content, but what could I be missing? Because that was a question I would say I was the insecurity on the flip side, right? Like I didn't want to ask the question, how is my thinking flawed? I simply wanted to make my thinking more emotional or more targeted so that I could feel good about the way I was thinking. And it wasn't until that flip that I was like, okay, nope, I don't need you right now, but this would be helpful, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love this. And I feel like this is a really good rabbit hole to go down. You said something that I think is an important question, and I don't even know how to begin to unpack, but the statement of how is my thinking flawed? When we're talking about this series of being uniquely human, and oftentimes this is a conversation that we're having that really only makes sense if we're comparing it to what it means to be not human, right? Which is the artificial intelligence component. Mm-hmm. That sentence of how is my thinking flawed, I feel like that's a huge piece that is uniquely human. I don't know that. I mean, I guess you could program an AI to think about if its thinking is flawed. Maybe in today's day and age, but
dangerous.
Yeah, that's another conversation. Actually, Jess was watching The Terminator again earlier today. Whole nother conversation. I don't want to get into it. I just want to separate that movie from any of my conversations. But can anybody speak to this idea or this concept, this realization that thinking about thinking, right? That metacognition, thinking about how my thinking is flawed. How does that like can we center that in this conversation and just share some wisdom, some thinking, some ideas around us being able to think about how our thinking is flawed? I feel like I just used the word think 1,000 times.
Arvin, I just had a conversation online with a bunch of educational leaders, and one of the things we were talking about is viewpoints and how every human being brings a unique viewpoint, whether it's questions that you have, experiences, data, things that you've read that frame your thinking, and that those viewpoints are fluid. So they may change as experiences change, as exposure to new data changes, and that kind of thing. But then the other side of that is always being open to the viewpoints of others and building that sense of empathy so that we understand that while we have a viewpoint and we want people to be aware of our viewpoint, others may not share our viewpoint. And that's kind of how we grow, is by seeing these different ways of looking at maybe the same topic or the same idea.
Jenna,
I'll let you go ahead. Can I just respond to Kevin? I think the fact that we think, I'm sorry about the ambulances outside of my apartment. It's terribly noisy.
You're good. Unscripted.
Okay.
It's Mexico City. It's crazy. I think the fact that we think of thinking as being potentially flawed is the problem that we're facing in education. Thinking is only flawed if you have some factual error. But thinking, if you think of it as a rich developmental process and social process, it's not, where's the flaw? As long as you take it as something that you can invest in to grow from. And I think when we just look at education systems that are looking for that visible output, you got it. You reached thing, you got it right, you check the box. That's exactly what the problem is here. That's not what thinking or human thinking is. It goes through so many processes. And so I don't know if the concept of thinking being flawed is relevant in many circumstances.
It's interesting. What I'm hearing you really talk about is the right answer, and is thinking been about getting the right answer. And when I think about compliance and I think about knowledge era schooling, it has been about the right answer. And so in this coming into this conversation, something that I was really thinking about is, does this whole idea that AI is replacing thinking and lowering critical thinking, is it really about AI is providing the right answer and giving us information easier? And so then we don't have to work as hard to find that. And it's exposing gaps in our actual metacognitive processes and our thinking about the information, because our world has been so focused and our education system so focused on what is the right answer and how do I get that quickly.
I think, Michelle, that's the point, right? There's been this trajectory of speed and efficiency that we can interpret in schools as this linear process to what the teacher wants me to do, and then I get there and then that's the end of it. And we bookend that and we move on to the next thing as if it never existed, as long as you can produce it on a test. But that speed and efficiency, this is sort of the nerd out area where I've been diving in lately, is that's actually what the brain is. The brain is actually designed for efficiency. It doesn't want to expend energy if there's a quicker way. And so it's like, how do we make sure that our ultimate value supersedes that seeking of the brain to be efficient, right? So how do we combat biases and heuristics and stuff like that by actually slowing down? You mentioned, that metacognitive process. And I think that was the piece that for me, I was trying to bring to the forefront is, I look at this from one angle. These are the only eyes I have and the only way I can see the world. And I can do the best I can to expand that. But ultimately, this is me, right? And so what could I be missing? It made me think of something. I was going to try to post it in the chat, but I'm not really good at multitasking. And will butcher her name, but it's a TED Talk. I'm glancing Shimamanda, and I cannot say it. And it's The Power of a Single Story. And she talks about growing up in rural, I think it was Nigeria, and how if you've seen this before, it's powerful. And I've shared this with people, like this idea of one story is the way it's always been. Is that your story? It's like, this is the way my family responds when we're frustrated. Is that your story? Like, it doesn't matter. There could be another story, right? And so you've got to get some other resources, some other models, some other experiences. And for me, I think AI is still easy at that, and I get Arvin's like, oh, I don't know, like this, it's easy, but does that make it better, or is it
right? And that's kind of my point, right? So I've seen the definition of thinking being, which I think is probably important to do. I don't know why, Michelle. I don't know if anybody else experienced this. I am becoming hyper aware of every time I use the word think in this conversation, and it's kind of irking me a little bit. So I'm if you see me cringe, that's what's happening in my head. I want to stop using it, but I feel like I cannot. When I was looking up the word or the definition of thinking, there's a lot of different ways that you can define it, but I think at its most simplest form is the process of using one's mind to consider or reason about something. The process of using one's mind to consider or reason about something. I've seen it also defined as the slow process of making meaning. I've seen it defined as the act of wrestling with reality, the curiosity refusing to sit still, and the mind trying to understand the world. The reason why I just kind of toss those out there is because you said something, Bryan, that I think is super significant, and that is that word slow. Michelle and I had a couple people on the podcast a couple months ago, and we were talking something. It was something about the AI counterforce or something. I don't know, Michelle, if you remember the exact term of the team. I don't remember what it is, but essentially it was this. It kind of percolated this idea of looking at the things that AI is really, really, really good at, and using those as indicators of what we need, as the opposites of what we need to start to hone in on that we are really good at. And one of those is artificial intelligence is fast at fast computing and very quickly getting answers. And so a strategy is we need to lean into the slowness and the stillness of our minds trying to comprehend complex things and not try to rush it, because it's in the slow processing. It's in that long journey between a question and an answer that the human mind can do something that artificial intelligence cannot do, right? Go ahead.
You're just singing my song, because, you know, you can see in my title there, I work with NeuroPoints, and Michelle mentioned it at the beginning. And the whole idea is Dr. David Hirely created a color-coded, integrated cognitive code. And the purpose of it is to facilitate the visual patterning of the 5 basic thinking processes. So in terms of slowing down our thinking, if a learner, any of us at any age, takes the time to code our thinking in this color-coded, pattern integrated way, that very naturally forces the slowing down of our thinking as we're processing thoughts or ideas or solutions to problems.
And so it's really understanding those thinking patterns that helps you to slow down. Arvin, I felt like you outlined kind of that gap that we're talking about beautifully. And I want to lift up what...
Oh, you froze for a second.
I froze?
Yeah. I think the last thing I heard was you want to lift up.
I want to lift up what Megan said, because I think she's talking about what both of you articulated, that slowing down to really understand our thinking. And like you said, Kevin, help students know how to name what the process that is happening. So Megan says, I challenge that thinking was replaced long before AI in schools.
Dude, that's a bar. That's so good.
It happens slowly over time. I think that AI is a mirror and is exposing this issue that is there. And when the output is the goal in education, thinking takes a back seat. Look at all the AI bots completing entire college courses.
Yeah.
It's just why it says it's wild where we have come. If thinking was the goal, this would have never been allowed. And I think she just nails right there that this isn't about AI replacing our thinking. AI is replacing information, but it's exposing the gap in our thinking processes and our emphasis on that in education.
I just got goosebumps when you read that, and I just copied it. Okay, I'll let someone else please
and
go.
Megan beat me to it, because that's exactly what I was waiting to say, is that I don't think it's anything to do with AI particularly. I think it's about the changes that we've needed to see in education for a very, very long time. Thinking doesn't just have to be slow. It has to be uncomfortable. It has to be uncertain. It has to be the space where you come out with partial understanding, and you can articulate your partial understanding and say, I'm at this stage in my thinking because, I've used these strategies, but I'm not quite there yet. And what I'm missing, that metacognition around it, we don't even write it into our curriculum. Where is the slow, the uncomfortable, the uncertain? Where do we prize that? Where do we tell students? The way you said that partially on the way to the correct answer is wonderful. This has to be written into what we do before AI hit our world, long before AI hit our world. So, yeah.
And Anna, that's partly why we have to equip them with a way to visually show that. We're not mind readers. We can't see what's going on inside the heads of the students or the teachers. So how can we equip them to be able to visually demonstrate that? So like you said, I see where you kind of got it to here and then you kind of fell off here. Well, I can actually see that pattern visually. I can't emphasize the importance of making thinking visible.
We've got a couple of things I want to lift up. Sophie Youngs just said the education system was designed to produce workers, not thinkers. And I think you're both echoing that in a huge way. Something you said, Anna, about 2 words stood out to me: uncomfortable and uncertain. Yeah. And when we think, Like that is not, you do not create conditions in your classroom for uncomfortable and uncertain. It's like the complete opposite. Certainty is valued, and there's this degree of being comfortable. And I think Rajana said something. My students tell me many of them have music or some podcast or something always in their ears because they get antsy in silence. I mean, like, think about the last time any of us were really bored, like really bored, like sitting there just waiting. I mean, even oh my God, like I go to the dentist or the doctor or something, and you're sitting in the waiting room for 10 minutes and I'm on my phone and I'm doing 15 different things. And when was the last time we ever just sat there bored, waiting for, and bored in that silence? And I know for me, at least when I do give myself those moments, that's when the ideas come.
Yes.
And the novel, creative ideas surface in those moments of silence and where my mind is allowed to breathe and think.
Yeah,
it's fun. I was going to jump on that when Anna is Anna, right? So when you said that, there's two pieces: that silence and slow part that Kevin was getting into earlier, and social, right? And so I was joking all last year when you were talking about thinking, Arvin. I must have said this a lot last year as a joke because a friend bought me this mug, Safety Third, which is like I just was saying it as a joke, and apparently I said it way more than I realized. So they bought me this mug, but I realized something in the midst of that if safety first, true psychological safety, if we can build that through, this is only going to happen through human connection, right? And so you think about the structure of classes and how quickly they have to move in the middle and in high school from class to class to class with no chance to engage that default mode network that shuts down, or metacognitive reflection, or journaling. And all of that is where we use executive functioning to plan where we're going to go next. We gauge our own identity. Oh my gosh, I taught middle school for most of my career. And if you don't engage safety first, you'll never be able to say to kids, look, and then model it yourself. I'm not so sure what I believe here, but here's where I'm at right now. What do you think? And that's another key piece, with seventh graders who do try to sneak that earbud in, hide it with their hair, which is, I lost that ability quite some years ago. But, to be able to model it and to say, I'm not really sure what I believe. Here's where I'm at. Here's some evidence, but I'm not sure. What do you think? Establishes that norm. And a school is just too fast. Whether it's bell to bell, class to class, day to day, content to content, I don't care. It's too fast to actually cultivate the part of us that can settle in and wrestle with that insecurity, knowing that we actually are secure in it, if that makes sense.
Bryan, you touched on it earlier because you brought up the term flawed thinking, which is such a subjective term, and how many students don't share their thinking for fear that it's perceived as flawed.
And I think to kind of bring all this together, we're talking about creating an environment where actual thinking can happen, and it's like we may have missed the mark and created an environment where learning can happen, and that's okay. But if we've wrongly defined learning, which I feel like we've also been talking about in this podcast forever, the end in mind is gone, and so the journey really doesn't matter because we're not going to get there. So along this whole conversation of being uniquely human and thinking, I'm really kind of hearing this theme of metacognition and thinking about thinking and thinking about thinking before people are thinking about it. Now I'm using the word so much, and it's just such a facet of humanity that I feel like we're stepping into some really, really, really deep waters here. And I feel like people in the audience, I want you guys to share some questions that you have for the five of us on here as it relates to thinking and being uniquely human. And while we're waiting on their questions to come in, I want to toss out this question right here.
No, I got a question.
Oh, go ahead. Actually, you go first. You go first and I'll go.
Okay, because here's what I was like, I just on that tail end we talked about school and thinking has been reduced in education. Now, what about the workforce? Like in your day-to-day jobs, are you being like pushed to think, or are you just automating outputs in your day-to-day work? I mean, what about that for a moment?
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, it's something I was going to say, this is mirrored in the workplace. It's mirrored everywhere.
Yes.
I was always that leader who had to have everything right and everything ready and execute perfectly and, get a great round of applause, until I moved into the startup, the messy space where it's creative thinking. And colleagues of mine will say that I was very uncomfortable at the beginning. So it's like, this is not what it's supposed to look like, until I realized this is exactly what it's supposed to look like. This is how we actually come up with better ideas and we push them further. If we think of learning, it gets me to an understanding, but if I can get to a development of an understanding or a morphing of an understanding or a new understanding, then we're in the creative thinking space, not just the dominion of thoughts, but we're actually pushing the thinking to create something new. And I think we don't even have that as an expectation in school. Why aren't we expecting everyone to get to here, and then where does it go from there? And in the workplace, I think we do the same thing. This is what you're expected to do. You're evaluated on it. Check, you're doing it. Exactly the same as school. And we need to, and I think we are going to, because the world has changed so much, that we are going to be looking at those people who are finding new ways, new pathways. The creative thinking is going to become very rewarded, and therefore we have to start doing this as soon as we can in schools.
Absolutely. Have you all been hearing the term adaptability quotient? Yeah. And so what I'm hearing increasingly from workforce is that's what's most being sought. And what does it mean to be adaptable? Where does thinking come into play when we think about being adaptable beings?
Yeah. Let me just say this, and then I'm going to toss it back to you, Bryan. I think your question, Michelle, is great. And I think there's a different answer if you work in a startup versus if you work in like an actual long-standing company. I feel like from my experience, being in a startup or ProSolve, no day is the same. No freaking month is the same. My responsibilities have changed more times than I think I've woken up in the morning in the last 15 years. And so I would say for me, there's actually a pretty massive amount of critical thinking and adaptability that I have to have, and that we've had to have in our company, that I don't think if you get just like a normal Fortune 500 job or some sort of a corporation job, that you just don't experience the same level of chaos and ambiguity and need to cut through the forest to get to the end of the forest. So I think for me, my answer to your question is yes. Other people, especially if you work in education, it might not be the same.
I think, you just described a startup culture, which is scrappy and you're trying to solve problems and work through. But I think that there's an environment, but I think there's also something unique about, and Anna started to talk about the creative thinking that comes with, entrepreneurship or startup culture, is because you're inventing something that hasn't been done before most of the time. And in corporations or school districts, we are moving through the same processes the way we've always done it. And it's about maybe being more efficient about the way we've always done it, hitting the bottom line better the way we've always done it. But what's unique is that this way of thinking that is inventing something new and using those creative ideas. And Anna, you and I have to talk, because I think about all the ways I came into inventing something new with old ways of doing things, which I heard you say. And it wasn't until I flipped it on its head that I started to really see innovation come alive. And I think that is when we look forward to the future of work, it will be more agile. It will be more adaptable. We will be needing to invent different ways of using our human skills, because AI can do the thinking that's efficient, can produce the output. So now the best companies will be the ones that are creating something new, creating a different way of producing something. And so I think that thinking both for workers and students is crucial.
But isn't it crazy how quickly the world is changing,
Yeah.
how fast industries move and change and get rid of things and bring new things, but education doesn't. We move so slowly. So how many cohorts or generations are going through the system without actually receiving an optimal service from us, right? We're providing a service which is, in my eyes, the way I always say it is providing a service for humans to thrive in their world. That's what I think education is for. If it's not for that, I don't know what it's for. And if the world looks very different to how it did 3 years ago, and we're still doing the same thing, then the overall big loser there is our students. And we can't do that. We can't in all conscience just keep doing the same things. We have to look at the future of work, the world as it looks, not even the future of work, as it looks today, and what I'm going to be doing in the next 5 minutes. Because that speed of change, if it doesn't happen in education, there's no better place for that speed to happen.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's a very challenging way to get that through, right? Because the people who are leading, they only have that one story for 30 years of their own career, plus the time they were in school, and the research that actually we know now, and the technology that can do the things that research says we should do, still have to make it through that bureaucracy and training and all that stuff. And I was thinking when you were mentioning agile, and I'm looking at one of these things that makes me look like I have the same flat top I had in the late 1980s. One of those books up there, now you're not going to be able to unsee that, is The Lean Startup. And I read that book right at coming out of the heels of being burned out. And it turns out, now that I understand that book, I feel like I need to rewrite it, because I was bored. And I was bored because of compliance. And it was this lean startup model. And I was doing project-based learning that was like open-ended product for kids. And I started flipping this into a STEM class that I pioneered. I had to pitch it and get approval and everything. And it was, what's the minimum viable project? And we would reverse engineer something. Could be a jump scare video. And I didn't care where it went. I didn't care what you used. And every single time it was that same process. Like, what are we going to have to learn? And how do we know when we got there? But that actually reinvigorated. I tell people it was the greatest teaching I ever did, and I couldn't prepare for it because I couldn't determine where the kids were going to take it. And somebody holding curriculum lens and accountability would say like, oh, well, that's a problem. And I would turn around and go, nope, that's the problem, because this used to be built on a predictable world, that if we have this standardized education that made everybody 90% of you predictable or productive and marketable in a career that existed, that doesn't exist anymore. And we can't predict it. And all that information is in your hands. So how do we teach kids to go back and find information about World War II and what caused it to apply to something that's facing us right now, and the school's just not built for that right now. And I'm hoping to make that change before stepping out, but it's hard sometimes.
I think there's a lot that we can do. There are many small changes that we implement when coaching teachers and leaders. Small changes, big impact. But I think you said accountability is this standardized accountability.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Accountability is great, but standardized accountability is limiting. So, that's where the richness of the human, if every, I don't like to say teacher because it just reminds me of a bygone era, but every learning facilitator is able to use their humanness to bring out the human in every room in a different way, but we are accountable, we're reaching standards and we're growing and we're learning. And, until we blow down the walls of this current system, it's going to be in that direction. But the standardized accountability is what can be so harmful for teachers and especially learners.
Well, that is exactly what the human intelligence movement really aims to do, is how do we shift the accountability system so that we hold ourselves accountable to human intelligence. And human intelligence is defined by multiple intelligence. AQ is one of them, EQ, IQ, CQ, MQ, all of those intelligences that make up the skills that we possess and that we will need. And I believe we really need to figure out, how does our system hold us accountable to ensure that our learners are graduating with those human intelligences. And I think, one thing I wanted to just come back to, Bryan, to ask you about is you mentioned that you've said this a couple of times. Everyone has their lens to which they see the world and their perspective. And sometimes, I really believe this, in education, we have this that is happening. And how do we break out of that mold and see things in a different way, in a different perspective? Because I think until we do that, you're right, that single story, that single perspective will guide our decision making, our leadership. And so what thoughts do you have on breaking out of that group think?
So I would say I was fortunate enough to get out of my classroom about 15 years in and get to see district, to get to see region, and just recently national, right? So I'm here in New York, and if you know anything about the general lay of the land in the United States over the last 30 years, there's been a pride, and I don't, this is like, oh, New York, California education. Well, I can tell you that the more I've got now, the more I realize, oh my gosh, are we behind? And what's happening is that pride actually created an echo chamber rather than an openness and a reaching hand. So I can say, like, going to FETC for the first time last year, it was like Mark Covell, you guys have probably had him on or talked to him. I love what he said to me this year when he saw me. He's like, I love this conference and he leaned in and he whispered, and this kills me. He goes, this is where the heretics come. And I thought, here's a guy who was a featured speaker last year, probably doesn't have much oversight, and he still feels the need to lean in, look around, and whisper, because he's advocating for change that kids need. Right? Like, that just tells you how crazy it is of this weight that maybe we can't quantify all the time. So for me, it's get out, man, get across the hall, get to see that other teacher, see if you can visit somebody from a different district, go to a national conference. Podcasting blew away everything I'd ever done as far as a PLC that on steroids. You just get to engage with people who think differently, you see the world differently. You're like, wait, you do what in Alabama? Because where I come from, people are like, oh, don't go to Alabama. You know what I mean? Because it was a bygone era of what education may have been 30 years ago, and they're killing it. Tennessee, these places.
Mississippi's killing it. Louisiana.
I just saw that the other day that Mississippi was up there like this. It's awesome.
So it's about, go ahead.
Sorry. Just, it makes me think about who's the one that has to be killing it. And to me, it's the students. So, districts can do things and school leaders can do things, teachers can do things, but we eventually want to empower the student to take that ownership for themselves and understand, buy into it. Why should I turn up every single day? Because often we do things and we know it's, to the benefit of students, but the students don't know that. So for me, it's about creating the space to invite the student into the conversation of why should you invest all these years in yourself? How are you going to do that? But more than how or what, it's why. They don't know why they have to do it. And without the why, it doesn't matter what the districts do, we still might never reach those students.
That context is huge, and it doesn't get captured in graduation rates or GPAs.
Yeah. Well, Mark and Megan are having a great conversation alongside of us around just this idea that traditional systems are very risk adverse. And that really comes from so many layers of accountability. And so that need to create space for risk taking, for failure, and the messiness that exists when we are thinking and learning, those are the spaces that we are going to need to really develop these human skills that we're talking about. If you do not learn how to be curious by reading a textbook, you do not learn how to collaborate by hearing your teacher give information. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And so again, I just speak to the need to really release some of that accountability and give permission for, I'll go back to what you said, Anna, permission to be uncomfortable, permission for the uncertainty, permission for risk taking. More and more, I see the future of jobs reports talking about how the future of the workforce will look more like a startup. We will not have people that are prepared to be in those environments because we have not created those conditions in our classrooms. And I think that's one of the most, more than AI is taking away critical thinking, I think we have a much more urgent and timely issue on our hands.
I agree so much with that because
that noise is the unavoidable truth sound. Kevin, I'll let you finish your thought and then we'll go to unavoidable truths.
Well, just real quickly, about 26 years ago, I was at a national ASCD conference, and all the big voices in education were there on the stage, and they were bemoaning the fact that our students aren't thinkers. And then they went on to say that if we want our students to be thinkers, we, the educators, have to be thinkers. But until and if the assessment, standardized or otherwise, requires some level of thinking, nothing will change. And I guess the point earlier about, this thinking issue predates AI is absolutely spot on, because that conversation that I was a part of 25 years ago is rushing back into my brain even while we're talking today.
Yeah, I love it. And that is so, that's fact. That is so reality. I love this conversation. This is the time where we do unavoidable truth. This is a point in our podcast where we have everyone here and everyone who's listening and watching share an unavoidable truth that you have come to or you have discovered as a result of this conversation. When we talk about unavoidable truth, this is something that is true, that is reality, regardless of how you feel about it, regardless of what individuals, forces, organization, whatever, are trying to hide or suppress this truth. Usually it's going to keep on popping up over and over. No matter how much you try to detour, this truth is going to keep popping up. So what are some unavoidable truths that we have encountered or we have realized or we have discovered during this conversation? I can go first because I got mine within the first 10 minutes. And then someone else can hop in and then we'll read some of the unavoidable truths that might be in the comments. The first one that I got, oh my goodness, this was when Anna was talking, and it was something along the line, I was trying to type it down super fast, but it was something along the lines of thinking has been about getting the right answer. And so we can consider it to be flawed if we don't get the right answer. And that's not exactly how it was said, but how I kind of pictured it was this, and Michelle gets to me about bringing this up every single time I talk, and it's this end in mind. I don't even remember, what's the book that I read it from, Michelle?
Covey.
Yeah, Stephen Covey. But it's like, when you guys were talking, the three of you, I think Anna summarized something along the lines of, we can consider thinking flawed because we have created an end in mind or a destination for what thinking should always end up as, or what thinking should always be, which we have considered, or we have made it reality that thinking should be about getting the right answer. And that's flawed. If we make thinking about thinking, and if we make thinking about exploring different possibilities or exploring how other things could be right, how what we think is right could be wrong. This is transcendentalism, I guess, in some way, shape, or form, right? If we make thinking about thinking, then it can't be wrong. And I think that's where we miss it sometimes. So that's my unavoidable truth that I discovered today. And I love it. I'm probably going to get it tattooed on the back of my neck or something. Someone else, feel free to share your unavoidable.
You might want to think a little bit more about that one, Arvin, before you do it.
You're right.
I'll definitely rethink that, yeah. I would say my unavoidable truth is education is made for humans by humans. So why does it not look human? What are we doing that makes it not look human? And this has nothing to do with AI and everything to do with AI, which is what my dear colleague Lucy Hutchinson always says. It's all about nothing about AI. It's about humans. It's a human process. It's hard to put humaning down onto a system or a process, and we end up making it into checkboxes. Let's get there faster, more efficiently. But it's not about that. So how can we start to make those small changes that bring so much of the human back. We can easily do it with a modern United Nations talk or a Socratic seminar or a literature circle. There are ways that can exist within the system, and there are much bigger ways too that hopefully we're going to get to more quickly than we have over than the last 25, 50 years.
I love that. That was so freaking good. I love that you said that. Someone else go share that unavoidable truth.
If we want learners to be thinkers, then the entire education system needs to shift to becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that ambiguity that we talked about before, we need to become comfortable with that and to foster the curiosity in the learners and honor that. And so I just think getting comfortable with the uncomfortable is critically important.
Okay, I have to say this. Okay, I this is not my turn. First of all, that was amazing. What you just said made me think about this. It's almost like what you just said gave me this picture of being a learner, like being the umbrella. But under the umbrella, we can have a myriad of things, and one of those things is thinking. Thinking can be a part of what is learning, but learning doesn't have to necessarily be a part of thinking. I don't know if this is making any sense, but I can almost say that we can qualify someone as a learner if they're able to remember information and regurgitate it, and that doesn't necessarily require a ton of thinking, right? Like using your mind to consider and to reason. You don't have to do that if you're just regurgitating onto a scantron. I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but what you just said made me think that we have built a system where we've classified learning, and the main thing that we're focusing on is regurgitating information that doesn't necessarily require deep thinking.
Yes.
Well, I think, Arvin, I love listening to you think about your thinking in real time. And so that's fabulous. Megan summed it up, her unavoidable truth. If the output is the goal, it was never about thinking at all. Which I think parallels what you were saying. Dr. Mark says his unavoidable truth. If we believe HI and thinking truly matter, we must start creating conditions where students and adults can freely exercise and strengthen their ability, confidence, and motivation to think.
Yeah.
Bryan, what do you got for us?
Oh man, this is my brain has like 9 of them, so just trying to figure out which one. And I'll say I wanted to jump in the midst of yours, Arvin, there. But I think as we create a school, a learning environment that's trying to shift away from, am I just memorizing? Then we have to look at this picture of holistic learning from the human, not just and I don't want to say the brain, because that's literally where it's all going to seat, but it's not about memory. It's about belonging. And part of belonging is sense making. And so how do we give kids that space to and we've hit on this the whole time, right? Like to say, I don't really know if this, you just did it. Is this making sense to anybody? I think it's making sense to me, but I'm not sure. And so like that signal right there is that not only are you comfortable in the midst of the 5 of us virtually sitting here, but also the audience and this medium to say, I'm not really sure. And I think that's really powerful. And that maybe getting the long way around to it is we have to model it. And so for the adults in the room to create that environment, we have to say, I don't know all the answers. And that's never been part of what it meant to be a teacher. You were outside of the 1987 Encyclopedia Britannica that was in my basement. You were the be all end all, right? You were the gatekeeper of knowledge, and that's gone. And so to be able to embrace the, hey, we're learning together, I don't know, and model that expands that from just remember and give. I call it filing cabinet education. Here, take that, hold it, don't change it, give it back to me when I ask for it. And you change it into more of a mural or an interactive whiteboard, or something where it's collaborative and social. But again, got to come back to that safety and modeling piece.
Yeah.
I love it.
Can I just say very 10 seconds? And Bryan, on that, if we don't do that very, very quickly, this is a culture shift that we need.
Yeah.
It's changing culture. Humans don't like struggle because it's hard. That's why we become efficient. But struggle is the only way to learn. So we have to change the culture around that. And now AI is here. It's like you've got minus 5 years to do that. You've got to shift the culture, and that starts with forward-thinking school leaders like Megan. Districts that are willing to take a stab at a culture shift, and it's a bigger fish to fry.
Well said.
Well
So
said.
I'll wrap us up with my unavoidable truth, which is it's time to give ourselves space to be silent and to think. And so that's what I'm walking away with, is that instead of packing my waking to sleep day with all kinds of efficiencies, technology, I can do so many things at once and multitask, I'm going to work on really giving myself permission to be in that space of silence, slow down, and be in that uncomfortable, uncertain, and let my brain do some thinking and not feel like I always have to be finding the answer right now. And I think from that's going to spark some real deep thinking, some creative thinking, some ideas that that have been kind of ruminating and percolating in the back of my mind, and giving myself space for that. So that's an unavoidable truth from tonight's conversation.
Love it.
I love it. This has been such a dope and fantastic conversation. Jenna, really quick before we close out, I want the counter. I want a number for how many times we used the word think or thinking in this episode. I want to see it at some point in time. There's got to be some AI thing that we can just feed the video into and count them. Thank you guys so much for hopping in this conversation. Before we go, can we have you guys share a little bit more about yourself and how the audience can find and keep up with your journey and just kind of stay in tune with the things that you're talking about and the things that you're doing? Let's start with you, Bryan, and then we'll go to Kevin and then Anna.
Awesome. So, my process has been, I was a 7th grade science teacher. I got into project-based learning and instructional technology. And then from there became a STEM integration specialist. And honestly, it all stemmed out of my own boredom. And it was just, I call it the bleeding edge, not the cutting edge. It's just, I didn't want to do things the same every time. I could see if the students were, if I was bored, the students were bored 20 minutes ago or 10 days ago. And so that propelled me forward. It was just that constant curiosity. And so I've actually, this will be my 3rd book. The first one that I wrote was actually a spiritual devotional that I wrote years ago. But then the second one on burnout, and this one, artificially intelligent, is all of this conversation. So it's really the idea that schools are producing kids who can pass tests but aren't prepared to thrive as human beings. And so the work that I really think is, you said it, Arvin, if I'm doing it backwards, is how do we create humans that get to define and pursue a life of meaning, and how does school or learning fit into that path, not the end of that path? So you can find me on kicksomeclass.com and all over LinkedIn and other places.
Kick some class. Y'all go out there and kick some class. I
love that.
Kevin?
All right. Well, I spent my first 10 years as a classroom teacher, and I was very comfortable with the uncomfortable. And maybe because it was during a time when that was more acceptable than it is now. But I had animals in my classroom. I had a stage in my classroom. Kids did skits and plays and had costumes and all kinds of things. And it was just a fun, engaging place to be. And that helped to shape the principal that I became, and then the person that I became supporting educators for the past 25 years. And I've subscribed to John Dewey's school is not just preparation for life, school is life. And so if we adopt that mindset, I think we're going to be so much better served. Our students will as well. Where you can find me is I'm all over LinkedIn, Just Thinking. And then also I have a podcast, Just Thinking, with Kevin Dougherty. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcast. It's also at Market Scale. I have a channel there. And if you want to know more about this NeuroPoints that I talked about, neuropoints.com. So hopefully I can just think with you beyond this podcast today. Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Thanks so much. Anna?
Yeah, I'm also over LinkedIn. I have the joy of working with so many amazing people. You probably find me on the AI Education Connective, connect as in connect, not collect, but connective. So we host a monthly roundtable for educators from all over the world. It's entirely free. It's a place to share ideas, perspectives on the path forward for education globally, because equity is an issue. So I am also writing about 6 different books at the same time, and they're nowhere near finished. Sorry, I have not got a book to promote today. But join us in the AI Connective. Last Monday of every month, you'll see us on LinkedIn. And thanks for having me today.
I love it. Thank you all so much. Thank you guys for joining in the chat as well, Dr. Mark and Megan and all the other people that were hopping in here. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you don't already know, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, LinkedIn Live, and YouTube. Just go ahead and do a search for Unscripted Intelligence. We also have a TikTok, but I think we just post fun little videos there of Michelle doing TikTok dances and stuff like that. So go check that out and do not be disappointed. Shout out to Jenna. You are the best podcast producer ever. And we freaking love you. If you don't know, you now can officially sponsor this podcast and join with us and partner with us to spread your message and to spread our message, the message of the Human Intelligence Movement. Just head over to humanintelligencemovement.org to find out information about that. Michelle, can you tell us what is happening on the next episode?
Next week, we are back and we are going to be diving into the topic of wisdom versus knowledge. And we have a couple of featured guests. Neka is joining us as well as Margot Toppin. So Neka McGee and Margot Toppin will be joining us. And we'll probably have one more person that will be a special surprise. So next week, join us and we will be talking about wisdom versus knowledge for another dynamic conversation on the table.
Yes, thank you guys again. Thanks for tuning in to this series and this episode. Please join us as we continue to talk about what it means to be uniquely human in an AI world. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.